that's what it was like for me. It was like I could not turn back once I had opened up that vulnerability. And people will say to me, how's it that you can just be so open with your story and you can just talk about these painful moments and it doesn't have power over me? Like it's my story. I own it. I went through it. I know it. But I'm also not the person anymore. I'm not like the same person who did all of that stuff.
Welcome to Amy Liz Harrison's podcast, Eternally Amy, a mum of eight's journey from jail to joy. A Gen Xer who overcame her struggle with alcohol to become a best-selling author and mental health advocate. She shares stories of hope and offers ideas for others struggling with mental health challenges, spirituality, ADHD, or maybe just family, travel, and logistics. One thing is for sure, you'll leave with something to chew on. And now, here's your host, Amy Liz Harrison, with your mystery meat sandwich.
Greetings, compadres. All right, today for your mystery meat sandwich, a quote by Saint Ignatius. True, I am in love with suffering, but I do not know if I deserve the honor. What do you think about that, you guys? Does that sound like a crazy paradox or what? It does to me. But the reason I chose this is my eldest daughter's birthday month at the time of this recording. And I always think about, people will ask me, you've had so many kids. What was it like to have that many babies? And you must love having babies and all this. Well, I did after the first one because what I learned was that I'd go into labor really fast. Like I'd have these fast labors. We ended up doing inductions every time, which was great because then they could kind of control and slow down the birth every time because my dear daughter, love her to death, but I was given that Pitocin drug, which if you've had a baby, you might have had. And wow, I was suffering. I was suffering with that until I got that epidural. And of course, I got the whole, hey, we didn't expect you to move this fast. And the anesthesiologist is in a C-section. Like, you're like number 3 in line to get an epidural after he gets out. And it was like, what are you talking about? It's like, then you have this baby and I have my daughter and you start the journey of mothering and parenthood, and it's just such a shock and everything's new. And then you kind of realize big picture when you stand back from all of that, from the trauma of the childbirth and all the new things and the staying up all night and being sleep deprived and all the physical things that come along with it and breastfeeding. And then you just go, wow, hold up. Like, I've been entrusted with another human being. That's crazy. It's just crazy. And so for me, falling in love with a baby, it wasn't this burning bush, like immediate moment of for me. It took time, right? And I think a lot of times we don't talk about that it's not that experience for everybody. For me, it was more like an arranged marriage. It took time for me to really grow into this depth of oh my gosh, I just adore you and who you are and who you're becoming. And you just amaze me. And that happened. That's how it happened for me with my kids is I would say in terms of that kind of suffering, I am in love with it because it's such a beautiful journey. Just such a beautiful journey, having a baby, raising a human being. And I don't know if I deserve the honor. Yeah, that's definitely true. But I'm thankful for it. That much I'll tell you.
And now, onto the Chaplain's Chat.
And we'll move right now into the Chaplain's Chat. Chaplain being me. All right, guess what? We're on the Enneagram Type 8, people. Type 8. Type 8, they have a lot of different names or terms for some of these different types. And I liked the term the challenger. So that's the one that I picked for this one. And key personality traits of the 8. They are independent and self-sufficient. They are fierce and they have, wait for it, a confident look. I don't really know what that means, but it sounds pretty good. Maybe like a Tom Selleck in Magnum PI kind of confident look. I don't really know. But they have determination and stamina. They are energetic and busy. They have fiery passions and power. And they can be stubborn and headstrong. And they can be serious about control over their environment. I'm not sure if an 8 would do super well having 8 kids if they want a lot of control over their environment. That's the only comment I'm going to say about that. But you never know. I mean, what do I know? Okay, core values of an Enneagram 8. Competence, influence, power, and control. So challengers crave respect as opposed to status or being liked by the group. What is that like? I don't even know. I am like the opposite. I just want to be liked by the group. Like, I'll be swayed. Oh, you don't want to do this homework assignment? You would rather go to McDonald's? Great, get in the car. Like, I'm more that type. But I love that idea of, yeah, there's people out there and they literally give 0 Fs and they're going to stick to the plan. And that organically creates respect for somebody, right? I mean, it does for me. I mean, I always respect people like that. They have great leadership skills, you know? Challengers are also set to make an impact and they don't back down. So they pride themselves on their strength, honesty, and truth. Challengers also possess an extremely strong inner sense of justice. Loyalty also plays a major role in the challenger's value system. They're devoted to those who have proven themselves over time and will stand by them until the end, through hell or high water. Sidebar: what does that mean? I've never understood that phrase. I've never Googled it. I don't know. What does that mean? Through hell or high water? Do you happen to know what it means, Matt?
I'm looking at it right
Oh,
now.
good.
I'll
Matt's going to tell us. Okay. So that's good. And while he looks it up, I'm going to say that 8s also, when danger comes and their loved ones are in trouble, 8s will confidently stretch their wings to protect them. That's beautiful. I love that so much because you need somebody to do that, you know? You need somebody who's confident in, you know, the face of chaos and trouble to be the person who's kind of the stabilizer and caretaker. So hell or high water, I don't know.
Not finding
Do you
it
find it yet?
right away. No.
Okay. Well, just pop in
Okay.
at any given moment because we need to know. Okay. So, how to recognize an Enneagram 8. Naturally accustomed to leadership roles, the challenger makes their presence known and carries an aura of confidence and self-assuredness in their speech and walk. They typically believe in the mantra of creating your own luck and work very hard to make things happen, no questions asked. What that sounds like to me is, I don't know, maybe they take responsibility for their own lives and they don't blame other people or circumstances or, yeah. And before I got sober, I was all about blaming everybody for everything. I just thought I was like the victim of life, and every crazy thing that happened to me was like, oh, someone's voodooing me. So I don't know. That was what was tough for me. And it seems like, I could learn from that for sure. Oh my goodness. All right. No, this is good. Thank you. Okay. So come hell or high water. Interesting fact. The expression come hell or high water originated in America. America, The first printed reference comes from an Iowa newspaper, the Burlington Weekly Hawkeye, dated May 1882. And here's the quote from said newspaper. Since that time, the best of my friends had become enemies, and strangers have become friends. The devil had broke loose in many parts of the country, and keeping up with the old saying, we've had unrevised hell and high water, and a mighty heap of high water, I tell you. Okay.
So it's like the devil's loose in America.
Oh, no.
And causing flooding and hell on earth. So.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And it kind of became, no matter what happens, I'm going to be there kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. So not today, Satan. I'm showing up.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Modern equivalent.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you know what? You learn something new every day. I love it. I mean, that's kind of one of those things, right? It's right up there with, 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. I'll be there in 2 shakes of a I don't know. Right? Keeps it interesting. What can I say? Okay. So, all right. How to recognize an Enneagram 8, other than come in hell or high water. They're going to be there. Basically is what that is saying. They're going to show up if they commit to it. They're going to be there. If they have a pulse, they're going to be there. 8s typically believe in the mantra of creating your own luck, as I said, and they work hard to make things happen. Well, I love that because, like I kind of was talking about, instead of blaming somebody else for something, they can take responsibility for it, whatever the outcome. And I think that that's an awesome quality. So they naturally butt heads with authority. Sounds familiar. Especially when met with the classic quote, "You must do this because I told you so," saying. Respect is earned through reason and competency and not through age or status. Well, that's interesting. Kind of sounds like Doogie Howser, MD to me. I like it. So when Enneagram type 8s are healthy and when they are not so healthy, boom. When they are healthy, 8s can become a champion of ideas for those who are oppressed. They're strong and confident leaders who can be the backbone and driving force for causes and communities. Their energy and commitment to improve upon society and themselves blossoms into new gardens where challengers can sow their seeds with care. To close friends and family members, challengers are generous and intensely loving individuals who freely offer refuge and advice. When they learn to develop their caring side, gratitude and joy emerges from their care for themselves. With this newfound sense of tenderness, challengers become aware of others' needs and will freely drop the tough persona. Gosh, that's interesting. And probably like the best of both worlds, I think. I mean, how cool is that to be able to have leadership skills, but also like a soft side? And that's the goal, I think, right? Like I will share, I had an instance recently where somebody who I had previously worked with and I had kind of put in the you're sort of a pain in the ass pile. I sort of, I just had a hard time working with this particular person because the thing is they never would show a side of themselves that wasn't I'm going to be the boss side. I'm going to be the leader side. You kind of looked at them like, is there a person in there? Like, hello? Is it me you're looking for? And I couldn't, and so eventually I was like, you know what? This ain't going to work. Like, I'm not going to change you, nor do I want to. You do you. I'm going to do me. And let's just kind of agree to maybe, I've got the brains. you've got the looks, let's make lots of money. It was not going to happen here, is basically kind of what it amounted to. And then recently, that same individual, after, I hadn't seen them for a while, we had spoken, we just spoke recently. And I saw a side of this person who I just could not believe. I was like, oh my word, you were in there the whole time. And it was just a softer side of them. And I'm not saying that's like good or bad. It's just indifferent, but it was a different side of that person. And I just felt lucky and I felt blessed to be able to see that other side instead of getting the kind of, boss leadership type side of that person only. And immediately I was drawn to that person. Like we started a fresh page. And it wasn't like we're in any kind of a fight or anything. It was just kind of like, yeah, you're not my people. That's cool. Before it was more like that. And now, I don't know, I just feel more connected to that person. And I'm excited, to have a future slate that is clean with him, I guess. And yeah, so I think that that's awesome. I think that it's neat to be able to have both sides. And, who knows? Maybe it's something I will get to work on myself. Not sure. Maybe Lionel Richie is like that too. I may never know. When they are average, 8s are competitive and they may view friendships or business relations as a battlefield and always looking for the next challenge to win. They're assertive and stubborn, but also self-confident and competent. During their downtime, they can critically evaluate their actions and work towards self-improvement. They avoid showing vulnerability, which can be a roadblock for connection and intimacy. Yes. Doing so would demonstrate weakness, which is absolutely unacceptable in their books. As a result, they can be seen as highly ambitious yet intimidating by peers. Their confidence and their stamina lifts them to new heights, with each failure serving as a kick for more effort. So interesting, because I don't know, sometimes for me, I'll take that stuff and I'll be like, oh, this is a sign. It's not supposed to be. Like, maybe I'm in the wrong field or I'm doing the wrong things. And for example, I will say that my husband has a little bit of 8 in him for sure when it comes to this. And he, for example, when something at work becomes a real challenge and problem, everything that makes that challenge and problem worse or more intense, or maybe now there's a problem on top of a problem, he just loves that. It just fuels him. He's just like, yes! And he gets super excited because he loves a challenge. So I find that interesting. Okay, moving on to the growth tips. Growth tips for Enneagram 8s. All right, check in with what you're thinking and feeling before making decisions. As a body-based type, 8s act instinctively on their emotions, which can result in impulsive outbursts or decisions that aren't fully thought through. When you feel the impulse to react, take time to sort through your thoughts and feelings before taking action. Yes, I wasn't really when I was reading that first part, I was kind of like, what? Does this kind of ring true? Like for what I know about the 8th, I was kind of unsure, but now I get it because I have seen this before, that there are some leaders who tend to just kind of bulldoze over a situation into more of an emotional reaction before knowing all the facts. But I think that comes from confidence, and from this sense of like, I know what the end goal should be, or I know this, that, or the other thing. And just, I think it must be difficult when you know that to not react emotionally. I just don't often know it, so I can't really relate. But also, another growth tip is to learn that vulnerability is a strength and not weakness. So, eights see their more raw and vulnerable emotions as weak, but growth happens when they learn to see the value in these aspects of their personality. So, vulnerability allows eights to connect more deeply with others and grow into their highest self. Oh, hello. Okay. Carolyn's here. This is no, it's all good. No, it's actually been it's fun. I love that.
Keep it in.
Yeah, keep it in. Yeah, Carolyn just arrived and she's wearing these amazing pants. Is it a skirt? Is it pants?
Pants.
Whoa. Oh.
I feel like a lollipop.
That's amazing because you look like one, but so, it's just super cute. I mean, I wish I had a visual right now, but that's okay. She's the cutest ever. Yay. I'm glad she's here. Okay. So growth tips. That's what I was doing is vulnerability. So here's what I have to say that I find really interesting. Okay. Before I got sober, and when I was still in my cups, as we say, and I was still playing the whole game of like, oh, let me be, church girl, church wife, and make sure that all is looking good. And then maybe nobody will notice how much I'm drinking. Or when I was doing that whole thing, of course, I was hiding. So I did not want to be vulnerable because I was trying to put forth a certain look, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to be seen in a certain lens. And later, after getting sober, it's like, I can't fit back into that box anymore. It's like opening a mattress from Amazon and it just expands. And then you come back 24 hours later and you're like, wait a minute, I thought I ordered a twin. This is the California King. And it's just this massive mattress, right? So that's what it was like for me. It was like I could not turn back once I had opened up that vulnerability. And people will say to me, how's it that you can just be so open with your story and you can just talk about these painful moments and it doesn't have power over me? Like it's my story. I own it. I went through it. I know it. But I'm also not the person anymore. I'm not like the same person who did all of that stuff. And so it feels like I feel like I'm talking about somebody else when I talk about my past. And I know it was me. I mean, I can really get in touch with those feelings and emotions that I felt. But that's, I think, what allows me to be so openly vulnerable when it comes to that, because I've been through it. I've survived it. I'm far past, thank God, one day at a time, from the intensity of that situation in that moment. So there's definitely, I think, power in that vulnerability. And of course, Brene Brown, all of her stuff, she talks a lot about shame and vulnerability. And so that's always, that's always a great resource. Not sponsored, but I love her. She's great. Highly recommended. So next to vulnerability, another growth tip is discovering your limits. Energetic eights frequently push themselves to their limits, unaware that they're doing so. This may cause them to unknowingly push other people to their limits as well. Pay more attention to your mental and emotional states and allow yourself time to rest and recover when needed. That's so interesting that, not knowing your limits is definitely, I've been there. I've been there so often in my life at different times. And then other times I need to push, I need to get into some action. And I just haven't realized that in my life. So I don't know. I'm just kind of mentioning that just as an aside. And then another growth tip is make an effort to give love and to receive love from others more openly. So 8s tend to view other people as either with them or against them. And this can make it difficult to form a solid, authentic relationship. So being open to giving and receiving love more freely is an area of growth for 8s. So not everything has to be earned. Somebody doesn't need to necessarily earn their spot in your life or earn your trust or respect. Sometimes it's a little bit more give and take, as I think, kind of this area of growth. And for me, not being so black and white is a huge thing that I have learned in my sobriety, my recovery, especially reading Richard Rohr has really taught me that sense of duality. Really, really love it. But I can still knee-jerk react to that black and white thinking quickly. So just a good reminder there, right? And allowing other people to take the lead sometimes. So with their commanding presence and direct approach, the 8 makes a great leader, as we've talked about. But there are times when you need to step back and allow someone else to step up to the plate. So it's important for 8s to learn when it's appropriate to let other people take charge or take care of things. And wow, what just popped into my mind as I read that is to, that whole concept of recognizing what is mine and what is yours. Like, what is mine to fix, to work on, to take care of, to make a decision on, whatever, and then what is somebody else's. And I'm particularly thinking of an institution where I volunteer. And sometimes it's really important for me to know that, like, oh, wait a minute. No, that issue or that problem or that, thing that you're seeing, Amy, that is in your mind a mess. Either maybe you don't know enough about it to even think or make a judgment that it's a mess. Maybe it's not, and it's just not your business. But also sometimes something kind of is a legitimate mess, but it's like people have to sometimes get to the end of themselves and their thing. There's that old saying, like, fall on your own sword. And sometimes that has to happen in order for a change to take place. And that's happened to me 10 billion times. So I have no problem saying that works. And one specific time that I can think of in my life was when I had my DUI and I came back from rehab and I had all this legal mess to sort through and I had no idea where to start. I had to you find out, and God willing, nobody will have to know this little piece of information who's listening today, but you find out when you have a DUI, how many people have DUIs and have completely different circumstances and rules to their case. Like, everybody's case is so different. Some people have a lot of fines to pay. Some people have a blow and go. Some people have to do community service. Some people have to spend 24 hours in jail. Like, literally there is not a one size fits all situation for a DUI. Let me just say, it is all over the map, or at least it was 11 and a half years ago when I had mine. And so my point in talking about the DUI is that my husband, as much of a caretaker and helping personality as he can be, was kind of like, hey, I love you. I support you. I want this sobriety thing to go well for you, obviously, so that we can rebuild our relationship and you can still have a family, Amy. But this is your problem. Like, good luck with this. And, I'm here if you need me, but I'm not going to sort this out for you. Like, I'm not going to sit and make phone calls and make sure that, all of these things are taken care of, because that's another interesting thing is when you have a DUI, you realize that, like, the Department of Licensing or Motor, I always call it the DMV, but that's not what it's called here. It's called something else, but Department of Licensing, I don't know. DOL. Thank you, Matt. And it's got, so they're not married up to like the court system, which is not married up to, there are all these wherever you pay the fines, the city of, for whatever city where you got the DUI has to be paid their fines. There's all these different things. So kind of you're the person who has to call around and make sure, did you know that I do have my blow and go? I'm in compliance. I'll send you the paperwork, la, la, la. And I know this is pretty elementary for people who are used to taking care of all these details. It was like really difficult for me. I hadn't done that kind of thing in a very long time. So I always think about that when I think about how helpful that was for me. Andrew wasn't going to just wave a magic wand and, oh, all your paperwork is completed. No, I had to run the whole thing. And I actually think that was a huge turning point for me, that I had to be the one to do it. And it was important. It was important for me to do that. And I think now, this time later, it is important for me to allow others that growth opportunity when that needs to be a growth opportunity for them. And that if I swoop in and rescue the situation, it's actually not doing them any good, And of course, I'm not talking about like life-threatening situations, but there are times when it is appropriate to just go, okay, I hope that works out well for you. Okay, guess what? We're moving on to the celebrities. Do you, if you are an 8, identify with any of these celebrities? Again, not endorsed by these particular celebrities. They did not sign off on this. So it's just an idea of these celebrities' personality types, okay? Barbara Walters, Ernest Hemingway, Queen Latifah, Roseanne Barr, Bernie Sanders, Aretha Franklin, Chelsea Handler, Pink, Mark Cuban, Alec Baldwin, Kamala Harris, Clint Eastwood, Winston Churchill, Serena Williams, Martin Luther King Jr., and then, of course, a conglomerate of characters from various things like Merida from Brave, or Emily Gilmore from Gilmore Girls, and Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind, and Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. So, type 8 says children, generally speaking, of course, are independent and have an inner strength and a fighting spirit, or can sometimes be loners. They can seize control so that they won't be controlled. They can figure out others' weaknesses. And, here's an interesting one. They can be attacking others verbally or physically when provoked. And they can take the position of being a leader in the family because they view themselves as the strongest. And that's got to be tough for a kid. I just think that has to be a little bit difficult. Okay, as parents, type 8s, generally speaking, are loyal, caring, involved, and devoted, or sometimes overprotective. They can be demanding, controlling, or rigid. And lastly, in relationships, type 8s in romantic relationships can focus their attention on passion and intensity. So they often surpass all other types in terms of both energy and the desire for the other partner to surrender to their lead. Well, that sounds a lot like, I don't know, maybe some S&M is involved. I'm just kidding. That's only on my brain because I used to watch this show called My Strange Addiction. I don't know if you've ever seen it. And I don't know, just some flashbacks from that show came into my head. And I'm also currently, by the way, at this recording, watching a show called How to Build a Sex Room. And man, that is interesting if you've seen that. I digress. What can I say? I'm sorry. So, eights see the world in terms of strength and weakness. When a spouse directly challenges them, eights respect their partner even if they disagree, as they like to be met with some sort of a reaction in response to their passion. This makes eights great at facing conflict. Wow. Wow, is all I can say. Wow. Though they may come across as intense, they don't mind logically hashing out an argument or changing their mind about something if they feel their spouse or partner can back up their point. Gosh, how interesting. This shows me just once again, how much growth I have to do in facing conflict. Because I'm that person, I'm terrible with conflict. And also, I love that this points out that, eights have basically, that sounds like maturity to me, the ability to hear somebody else's reaction and then change their mind. What? I think that's amazing. And I think that takes a lot of strength and probably wisdom. And I think that's pretty much goals for me right there. And much better than, well, I changed my mind on this because I read someone's Facebook post. Yeah, no, never happened. I've never heard that before. So, eights will also protect the people they care about with their strength, energy, and power. However, sometimes they forget to acknowledge their limits and desire intensity in all manner of stimulation with their drive to fill up the inner emptiness through physical gratification. So this can focus on winning, food, sexual gratification, or any other type of gratification. Maybe it's gambling, maybe it's shopping. We don't know. We're not here to judge. The eight does well to pull back, to take a deep breath, and to find a wider variety of smaller passions when necessary. And might I add, on a personal note, it sounds like also smaller passions and probably safer ones that won't cause harm or damage. If you love an eight, remember, they are going to love you hard. They're going to love you for a long time, since loyalty is one of their values, if they feel you can be trusted. So this is a rather big if, because as most eights know, they often lost trust at an early age, or sometimes did, and they're kind of just on their guard, right? However, they're excellent about sharing their frustrations, not usually overly fearful, and they are not extremely bothered by showing their stamina and power in a disagreement. This is indeed the gift of the eight, which I admire because I don't have. A good growth practice is to remind your eight to be self-controlled versus always going after more. You can also encourage them to be helpful and not demanding, and to trust a higher power versus always following their own gut. This latter tendency can sometimes deter them from integrating their heart and thoughts, or cause them to withdraw too quickly in relationships.
Finally, here's your bailout bag.
For your bailout bag, I just have to say that, I don't know, this eight talk has caused me to think a lot about relationships that I have and reactions that I give or don't give, how I behave in conflict, how I behave when somebody is really emotional about something. And I used to be really decent, I'll say, at de-escalation tactics. And I'm not so great at that anymore. I don't know, but something happened when I became a mom where I got this weird, like, F me, F you, like this weird kind of mama bear, like, I don't know thing. And what's coming to mind at this very second as I'm talking is about 2 years ago when an old lady who used to be our neighbor fell down. She was trying to walk down a hill by our neighborhood, and we were in a car, and we were like, beep, beep, hi, Arlene. And we're like waving at her. And I mean, I don't think we caused her to slip because she was wearing like ballet flats and stuff, but she slipped. And so Andrew like throws the car in park, gets out, helps her up, and is like, I'm going to drive you home, Arlene. And she was okay and everything. But some a-hole in a big truck behind us was like honking and like, get out of the way, the light's green, doing that whole thing. And I got out of the car, and I don't know what happened, but some rage came over me. And I like aggressively moved toward this truck. I mean, no plan. What am I going to do? Right? Like, really? And I'm like screaming at this guy, like, what is your problem, asshole? Like, I'm just like going there. And I share that in the very end of this session, this bailout bag, to demonstrate that, I don't know, I guess I could use some help when it comes to conflict, you know? Room for growth for me, for sure. And so, you know, in closing, I'd like to say, come hell or high water, I just advise us to be kind, rewind, thank you for the honor of your time, and take what you like and leave the rest behind.
Thank you so much for listening to Eternally Amy. Amy Liz Harrison is a best-selling author, speaker, 12-step coach, meditation teacher, and recovery advocate. To find out more, please visit amylizharrison.com. Keep up with Amy on all platforms by following @AmyLizHarrison. Please subscribe and review this podcast. It means so much to us if you do.